Good evening. My name is Jose Diosdado, and today I will be doing a case brief over Robert Johnson versus Cintas Corporation, number 2, and United Healthcare, case 860 NW 2D515 from the Wisconsin Courts of Appeal of 2015. Let's start out with the relevant facts. The substantive facts in this case. Johnson filed suit against Cintas Corporation, United Healthcare, his coworker and driver of the vehicle, Marvin Crandall, and Crandall's automobile insurance company. Johnson was an employee of Cintas and was required to use his personal vehicle during the course of his employment. Johnson was riding as a passenger in his own vehicle driven by Crandall, when Crandall negligently operated the vehicle, causing it to collide with another vehicle. Johnson alleged that as a result of the accident, he was permanently injured. Johnson also claimed that both he and Crandall qualified as insured under Cintas automobile liability insurance coverage. Cintas' refusal to pay any benefits, according to Johnson, constituted a breach of contract. Johnson, in return, filed suit on Cintas number 2, a wholly owned subsidiary of the named defendant, Cintas. Let's talk about the procedural facts here. Neither Cintas nor Cintas number 2 answered Johnson's complaint. Johnson's counsel filed an affidavit of no answer, and Johnson moved for default judgment against Cintas number 2 and not Cintas. Cintas then filed an emergency motion to dismiss Johnson's motion for default judgment on the grounds that the circuit court lacked personal jurisdiction over Cintas. Cintas attached to its motion various corporate records from Wisconsin's Department of Financial Institutions, stating that Cintas was not a registered corporation in Wisconsin. Johnson then filed a letter with the circuit court expressing his intention to amend his summons and complaint by changing the named defendant from Cintas to Cintas number 2. The circuit court granted default judgment in favor of Johnson and against Cintas number 2. The circuit court then held a hearing finding that Cintas number 2 failure to answer was due to mistake or excusable neglect under Wisconsin statute 806.07(1)A. The Court of Appeals rejected Johnson's argument that he simply misnamed the correct defendant. The Court of Appeals reversed the default judgment and remanded the cause to the circuit court for further proceedings. Applicable laws question. Does the circuit court have personal jurisdiction over Cintas number 2, regardless of whether or not the defect prejudiced Cintas number 2 and regardless of the manner in which Cintas number 2 held itself out to the public or to Johnson specifically? Remedy sought. The plaintiff in this case is demanding that both he and Crandall should qualify as insureds under Cintas automobile liability insurance coverage and therefore be entitled to benefits. The issue in this case is improperly naming of a corporate defendant entity a fatal error that allows that corporate defendant to avoid being subject to personal jurisdiction? Holding, yes. The Court of Appeals concluded that service in this case was fundamentally defective because Johnson failed to name the proper corporate entity as the defendant in his summons and complaint. Let's talk about the reasoning. The circuit court lacked personal jurisdiction over Cintas number 2 because the corporate entity did not receive proper notice since Johnson served Cintas Corporation and not Cintas number 2. The rule of law in this case. In order to obtain personal jurisdiction over a corporate defendant, a plaintiff must serve any company the plaintiff intends to sue with its own summons and complaint as a legal entity independent of its parent corporation. Now, the evaluation of this case. Any party that is sued in a court of law deserves to receive notice that a party is filing suit against it so it can prepare with adequate defense. By serving a completely different company, Johnson did not give Cintas number 2 the ability to participate fully in the legal process and to avail itself of the protections afforded it under law. Without proper service, a court cannot exercise personal jurisdiction over any party to a case before it.